Hello, hello. This is Ilya from Cloudthread and Cloud Cost Clips. Today we have Vitaly from Align, and we will be talking about storage cost management on AWS. This is a big topic. A lot of money is wasted on S3. And probably everybody who is dealing with cost management knows about it, right? S3 is consistently among top 3 high spending services that we see among our clients. And Vitaly is a real expert. So we'll start with an intro, and then we will go into the weeds of the topic. Vitaly, just make an intro.
Hey, I'm Vitaly. I am leading cloud FinOps at Align Technology, and I've been in this space for a while now. Before Align, I was working at the cloud infrastructure consultant at Accenture, and within my career, I saw like how the infrastructure evolves over time. So here I'm focusing. I have a more kind of a specific focus on the cost management, but before that at Accenture, I had like a broader scope of things.
Yeah, awesome. And man, I know that you've been dealing with storage costs at Align quite a bit lately, and I wonder, what you think about this topic in general. Like, why is it usually so difficult to deal with like S3 costs? Why they don't make it easy? What issues you see?
Well, great question. So I think it all comes from the naming. Like the storage tiers has a like the the names of the storage tiers is really confusing because like standard is the top performance storage tier that AWS has, and like infrequent access is like their kind of a number 2 performance tier. And when you start talking with kind of a developers about the storage costs, they're saying, okay, you just use standard tier, and you're like, but this is the most expensive tier. You don't need it in like 100% of the cases. Why you should use it? And when you're like starting to work with them and understand like if the infrequent access works for the use case, the naming is just kind of a leading to this unnecessary conversation. Like we don't need our data to be our data to be accessed frequently. We don't need an infrequent access. So I think if it is made intentionally, that this is a great kind of a monetization policy, because like man, there's like always there is a conversation about the name. So this is one. The other thing is like when you're thinking of AWS as like a global cloud provider, you're thinking that it is consistent across all the regions. It is consistent from like kind of a code and kind of a use case perspective, but it is inconsistent in terms of the pricing. And well, guess what? It's not only expensive to live in Northern California, it's also expensive to host your resources in Northern California. Like you need to carefully pick up the region for your data to be stored in. Like spoiler alert, US West 1 is not the is not the cheapest region, but like you can imagine that like not knowing that can lead to like significant kind of a architectural mistake. Yeah, and the similar situation is in Europe. There are some regions that are more expensive than the other. Next big issue that comes to my mind is like the amount of data that you're storing is definitely, well, it's obviously the kind of a key cost driver, but like you need to be careful when you're creating the additional use cases for the data. So we've been trying to identify where we have the data duplication across like multiple applications or multiple use cases. And it's kind of a hard because like, well, at the beginning, the storage cost is not high and you're just kind of forgetting about it. And then you're starting to review it. And then you're figuring out that, well, there is a like a backup bucket that was created long time ago before the versioning was introduced to the S3, and like you don't need it now, but it was like somehow you forgot about it. So yeah, it's kind of a amount of data. You need to carefully review the kind of a data storage use cases. And yeah, speaking about the versioning, it's also kind of a cost you money, so you need to be careful when you configuring the versions for the S3.
Yeah, it all makes sense. Yeah, I've you know, when I was dealing with cloud cost management as a practitioner at EA and at Lyft, you know, I've been through, you know, like those issues as well. So yeah, it has always been a bit frustrating, you know, why AWS doesn't make it really, you know, like intuitive, right? Well, that's how they make money. Probably that's an answer. And they make a lot of money. I also remember, you know, like dealing a lot with retention policies for S3 data. And AWS has been making like some progress on that front on the, you know, like help side, right? I think last reInvent, right? Like we just had reInvent last week, right? But a year back, they introduced intelligent tiering, right? Which was supposed to make like this transfer from like S3 standard tier to, you know, like basically to like reduce redundancy or like Glacier, right? Much easier, basically automated. And that seemed like, you know, great solution, right? Basically like all you need. But turns out it's not, you know, exactly that. I wonder if you had like an experience with that and like how are you dealing with data retention policies for S3?
Yeah, I mean, intelligent tiering is uh, it was kind of a well presented during the reInvent, but then right after that, there was like a lot of discussions around how effective it could actually be. And speaking about the retention policies, when I was talking about the different use cases that you need to identify in order to optimize your storage cost, one of the use cases could be like is that you have like you need a temporary storage for like for your app just to store data between the different kind of calculations. And in that case, you don't need the data for a long period of time. So if you would configure it for the like as a storage, as a intelligent tiering, it would just kind of archive the data. So in that case, retention policy um, would be the better solution, so that you make sure that the data is kind of deleted after a certain period of time. But speaking about the intelligent tiering, it's kind of a great starting point when you don't know anything about the kind of a different storage types or different kind of a strategies to optimize storage costs. But it also kind of can be a little bit hard to identify if it actually suits you. So in our case, what actually we found out when we were testing it is that when you have many objects in like smaller size, the kind of the monitoring fees are actually super high. So in order to identify if it actually suits you, you need to implement it on a like temporary bucket with a kind of a similar data structure, and just to monitor how much you will be paying for the monitoring fees. And on top of the monitoring fees, you need to also account for the kind of the transition fees, because like guess what, moving from one tier to another, it's not kind of a it's not free. You need to pay for each kind of a transition between tiers. So this could be this could actually end up in you paying more. So what AWS can do on their end to make it more kind of a user friendly is make sure that you have like a kind of a you're not, make sure that you're not paying more than a standard tier. In that way, that will incentivize you to use kind of an intelligent tiering, because you know that potentially it can optimize your storage cost by moving the data that is not accessed frequently, to like lower storage tiers.
Some guardrails and like no downside for this feature. I think that is like so logical. Yeah, it's unclear why they didn't do it.
Yep. And I guess you need to carefully review the monitoring and the transaction fees for your data set, so that you will understand like if it actually suits you. Because I guess for many for many use cases, this could work out, and you will remove all this kind of additional complexity that will be added by having this retention policies, because like you need to review them, and it's not that straightforward as just kind of implement the intelligent tiering.
Yeah, and just to summarize, for your use case at Align, it basically didn't work out, that math, right? And what are you using instead?
We're just using the retention policy. So we are basically moving objects from kind of an infrequent access tier to a kind of a more towards the archive within a certain period of time. So it's basically we implemented the same logic without the monitoring fees.
Gotcha. Okay, no, that makes perfect sense. And, like to our listeners, I guess that can be, like an actual advice, right? Before using, and probably it applies to any feature AWS releases, right? Before just like trusting, the marketing and just diving deep, into some like use cases with this like feature, make sure that, like it really suits your case. In this case, like check the math, right? If it will be like saving you money. And if not, there are lifecycle policies, there are, like certain workarounds that are a bit like more complex from like engineering perspective, but, they at the end lead to the same result, like with actual savings. Cool. Vitaly, thank you so much. It's been like really, really insightful.
Thank you, Ilya, for making this happen.
Thank you, Vitaly.